All right. So up until this point, I have mentioned to you that there is a very specific weather wind pattern that moves weather across the United States. Raising your hand, who can tell me what that weather pattern is that moves weather across the United States? And it's one of the reasons why we have things move from California to us. Sophie. The prevailing westerlies. The prevailing westerlies. There is a second river of wind that moves at different places across the United States at different times. It can deflect the weather that the prevailing westerlies are moving, and it is called the jet stream. Now, you'll notice that it says right here that the jet stream is described as a river of wind. I think that is a very fantastic description of the jet stream. Now, this jet stream, when I say it's a river, it is obviously a very long river. As you can tell, it goes across the entire United States and even further, but we won't get into that. And it also is very, very wide. It is a very wide river of air, which is important for us to know about. It's not unbelievably deep. When you start thinking about our layers of the atmosphere and those types of things, this is not as deep as you would think it could be, but it is something that we need to think of. So the winds of the jet stream are caused by differences in temperature between two different air masses. And if you look at the picture that we have here, Lily, cold air is above the jet stream and warmer air is below the jet stream, which if you look at this map starts to make sense because we start to go from, if you look below the jet stream, that's closer to the equator. If you look above the jet stream, that's further away from the equator. And that makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. So first thing we need to do, I'm going to open up the whiteboard here. You can take these notes as well. There we go. Man, this thing is not like for me to write on it. I have to write so slow. I'm going to pause this so that you can take notes because I don't need to sit there and wait for you to take notes when I can pause this. Much like the prevailing westerlies, the jet stream can affect worldwide weather patterns. The winds can push weather systems away. Think about it. If you're a weather system over here, right, and I'm trying to make it to North Carolina, am I going to make it to North Carolina? No, because I'm going to come to here and it's going to get pushed down towards Florida because of the jet stream. Even though the prevailing westerlies are blowing, the jet stream would move it out of the way. Meteorologists like to track the position of the jet stream because it helps us understand what type of weather we might have. And so you will see this question very often. What has the greatest effect on the movement of the jet stream? And that's the differences in air temperature. We just talked about that. The jet stream will shift throughout the year. In the colder weather, like the winter, they move south. Sophie, like you and I said, they tend to be strongest in the winter because the temperature differences between the Arctic and the tropical air masses seem to be the greatest during that time. I'm going to throw this line on my whiteboard. Will it let me do it in text format? It will. Maybe. or maybe not. Let's go back to this. Oh dear, now I'm done. Now I don't, this you need to know. What has the greatest effect on the movement of the jet stream, and that's differences in air temperature. That's important. The greater the difference in air temperature, the faster the jet stream can blow. You don't have to know that it moves faster in the winter. That's just something you might remember as we keep moving on. So I know that prevailing westerlies, I feel like I just said this at the beginning of all this, that prevailing westerlies is the thing that we learned about this past week, that they move weather across the United States. They're also what helped push Ellen MacArthur back to her starting point, right? Because she started in France. The jet stream can deflect weather. Now remember that the jet stream separates two different areas of air. To the north is colder air. To the south is warmer air. So what we need to do is this. All right. So we saw that the jet stream looks something similar to this. Would you agree? Now, if the jet stream looks like this going across the United States right now, what type of air is at North Carolina? Remember what's above and what's below there. It's warmer air. Now, sometimes the jet stream will move up way up high. And what's happening then is this, Lily. It's bringing in, remember down here, this is called the what? Gulf of Mexico, and that's where the Gulf Stream originates, and that's what fed that last hurricane, right? What type of air mass is in the Gulf of Mexico? And if you can give me the super correct name, bonus points to you today. If you just give me the temperature, fantastic. What kind of air do you think is in the Gulf of Mexico, Lily? Warm. It's warm air. It's a warm air mass. Who remembers the name of that when we put those little puzzle pieces together? What that would be called? Izzy? No, not El Nino. We haven't even learned about that yet, but we will. That's in the Pacific Ocean, but thank you for knowing one of the words. We took these little Lego pieces and put blah, 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 blah together. Sophie? One of them meant water. One of them meant what? Maritime. Tropical. This is the maritime tropical. It will actually pull this up into North Carolina, giving us like unbelievably warm weather. Is that going to happen, do you think, in the summer, or do you think that happens in the winter? Summer. Not a trick question. That happens more in the summer. Now, sometimes our jet stream will go like this. What's happening in North Carolina when the jet stream does this, Judah? Okay, so we know in the wintertime the jet stream moves down a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit cooler. It brings in some of this cooler air from Canada down into North Carolina, and we get a little bit cooler. Now, every once in a while, whoa, that's too much. The map disappears. No, every once in a while, the jet stream will do something really crazy, and it'll do this down below Florida. I know one Christmas I was at Disney at Christmas time, and it was so cold in Florida that and then none of us thought about that. We're all buying jackets and hoodies and stuff at the outlets because it was freezing. It was super cold. Now, what happens during this is, I know that way up here you can't really see it, but up above Canada is the what area? I know we haven't studied ecosystems, but it is the what? And there's a certain type of air that's up there that we talked about when we did our global winds. We know it's going to be polar easterlies? Nope, not polar easterlies. This is the air mass that's up there that we talked about. So we know it's the blah, blah, blah over the blah, 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 because it's the two words we put together. Did you? It's over land, so we call it continental polar. Nope, it's above Arctic. What kind of air did they say the Arctic had, Bishu? Bitterly cold. Now all of a sudden the jet stream, whoa, wrong color, wrong marker. It's bringing in something called bitterly cold, and you might hear the person on the news channel talk about something called a polar vortex, where it's bringing in all this super cold air in from the Arctic. Now, this happened. I hate you're starting to age out now. My fifth graders aren't going to remember this as much anymore, and I barely mentioned this to you the other day. You may have been, it was either kindergarten or the year before you came to kindergarten. This has been a little while. We were out of school for like a week, maybe even a little bit more. There was no snow. There was no ice. Like, not out of school all day long, but like we had delays every single day. It was so cold, the buses would not start. And that was because of a polar vortex pulling cold air all the way down into Florida, which is pretty rare, right? That doesn't happen very often, that the jet stream can dip down like that. Think about it. If you're the prevailing westerlies and you're trying to bring, this storm across the United States, I want to click on that, not there we go. Just this. Come on. Can I click on that? I mean, goodness gracious alive. Oh my goodness. If I'm trying to have this storm with prevailing westerlies move this way, guess what happens when it hits this? It moves it like this, because the prevailing westerlies just aren't as strong as a super strong wintertime jet stream. Because the jet stream can deflect weather that's moving across the United States. So when we talk about this right here, I'm telling you now, on the test, on the benchmark, on the EOG, they're going to give you a map. They're going to show you the jet stream. Now, it may not be North Carolina. It could be any other state in the United States. And it's going to show you the jet stream above a place. It's going to show you the jet stream below a place. Lily, if I were you, I mean, as soon as I'm handed the test, right, on a blank sheet of paper, because you know you get that, right, in a little tiny spot, I'm drawing this, and then I'm drawing cold above it, and I'm drawing warm below it. And guess what? You don't have red, white, blue pens and stuff, do you? You just have pencil. So I'm probably going to be writing the words that way. Anywhere that I see it, then I look at my memory dump and like, okay, if I'm above the jet stream, I'm colder. If I'm below it, I'm warmer. Sometimes, they don't even give you a picture. They just happen to say the jet stream has dipped below North Carolina. Okay, time out. The jet stream is below North Carolina. The tendency for me is to say this is the answer, right? But that's not true. The jet stream is actually below North Carolina, so what would the temperature be like? It would actually be colder. So when it says it in just words, I have to draw a map. Otherwise, I'm going to miss it because it gets far too confusing. Here is our next sentence that we should be putting in our notes. When the jet stream dips below North Carolina, it brings cold air to us. If it's above North Carolina, it brings warmer air. I'll pause this for my last one. And one last thing for us today, unless I get a chance to do a little bit more. I don't know if I will or not. I may not have specifically said it, but the jet stream moves in the same direction as the prevailing westerlies. It moves from west to east. Now, if I happen to be on a plane, and there's my fantastic plane. Yeah, that's awesome.
Looks like a rocket.
Yeah, well, that's a plane. If I am on a plane and I am flying from California to North Carolina, I like to be in the jet stream because it helps me go faster. It's a very, very fast wind. However, and I'm not flipping this guy around, if I'm flying from North Carolina to California, I'm going to want to avoid that if at all possible, Lily, because then I have that wind pushing